SIFTER.com.au.
Hello and welcome to Lightmap from SIFTER. On Lightmap, we explore what it takes to make video games and interactive media, and you meet creative teams from all around the world. My name is Gianni. Thank you so much for joining me. Every episode, I introduce you to developers, artists, musicians, researchers, and more. And video games have a couple of iconic video game duos. You know, it's a big part of playing games. There's Banjo and Kazooie, there's Ratchet and Clank, and maybe Little Dros and the Captain might be the next legendary pairing. Ben Ward and Tim Molony from Emerge Worlds are launching Dros, which is an adventure where you are switching between two characters, a partnership as you explore an alchemical world. Ben and Tim, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Gianni.
Thanks for having us.
We're excited to learn a little bit more about your game, but before we dive into our chat, let's find out what's been making the news on this week's episode of Walkthrough, which is SIFTER's weekly news podcast.
Hi, I'm Fiona Bartholomaeus.
And I'm Kyle Pauletto.
And here are the top stories this week on Walkthrough, SIFTER's weekly news podcast for Sunday, 16th of April.
Portal 3 unlikely because of how Valve makes its games, says writer Eric Walpole.
The innovative game-making experience Dreams is shutting down in September.
An Aussie dev has made a PS1-style demake of Dead Space.
And Suicide Squad is delayed again until February 2024.
You can get every episode of Walkthrough for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or on our website, sifter.com.au, every Sunday.
All right, we have fallen into a grate. We've tumbled our way into the world of Dros. Can you tell me what is Dros? What sort of game we'll be exploring as you've launched your Kickstarter for the game today?
Yeah, so it's a 3D puzzle platform with kind of combat elements as well. And yeah, we're really excited to launch our Kickstarter in a few days. And really, it's a game that is inspired, I think, for all the team by kind of for us, a nostalgia maybe of the 80s and kind of the classic adventure films and games. You know, I grew up with films like The Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, dark fantasy kind of films of Jim Henson that really kind of always stayed with me. Quirky characters that were kind of not all good and not all bad. And I guess that was one kind of story and world jumping off point for Dros. But, you know, as you kind of mentioned, the other kind of, I guess, unique point of Dros is that kind of this dual switching mechanic that we developed. And as you know, that's nothing new in games. We, buddy games are certainly a big part. Banjo-Kazooie, Ratchet and Clank, but I think in Dros we wanted to kind of have a bit more fun with it, subvert that a little, so that maybe the characters have to team up, but they don't necessarily like each other much. So that was kind of the idea.
Tim, can you tell us a little bit more about the world that you've designed and the game that people will be playing? What sort of challenges will they be facing?
Yeah, the world is based around, all the stages are based around diorama, sort of a diorama style. So there's around 40 stages in total. And each stage has a mixture of puzzles and combat, as well as a lot of stages have sort of a story element that Ben was referring to. So, yeah, you get to talk to a lot of characters along the way. Some of those characters will give you, certain tasks that you need to perform for them. But in other stages, they're more based around sort of puzzles. And I guess the overall goal is to sort of get the characters from one entry gate to the other, and using each character's different abilities. So Little Dros can jump and she's very agile, whereas Captain's more of a brawler, so he can fight. And so you've got to decide which character to use along the journey. And sometimes you'll have to combine as Captain and Little Dros and fight through enemies, and sometimes you'll have to go and explore with Little Dros and find new paths through. And I guess it's a mixture of puzzle and combat, and it's sort of a story-based game as well. So, Ben, do you want to add anything to that? Yeah.
No, I think that sums it up pretty well. I guess there's this kind of absurd duality to Dros that has always been there from the start, and I feel like every design decision we came to was almost based on that. So it's that classic thing: dark and light, heavy and light, or thick and thin. This duality between the two. And as we went through designing the game, that was just something we just kept wanting to come back to with the two characters. They're kind of the opposite of each other, and they can do things that the other can't. So,
Ben, maybe you could tell me a little bit more about sort of designing this world, because one of the things that's really striking about it is, you've got this really sort of creepy, almost, decaying in parts, but also very kind of cute and cutesy, like all the characters kind of look a bit bobbleheadish, and they've, got this great sort of look to it. Tell me about making this world and, exploring that through the art design of the game.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess a nice little analogy is, in Japan, this kind of design is nothing new. That it's very they actually have a word for this kind of it's like chibi. Well, I was going to say chibi, but also the juxtaposition of this whole dark and light, ugly and cute together. And so that appears a lot in Japan. And I actually, as a sub-note, I actually used to work in Japan. I worked there for about 7 years in a few game companies, but maybe that kind of wore off on me, I think. And I wanted to create this world definitely where there is this decaying, darker element, but also it's contrasted with this cuteness and charm. And yeah, absolutely, that was a real, I guess, goal of mine from the start. Another thing to say would be, maybe if you, at a glance, if you look at the game and you don't pay too much attention, maybe you look at the character, you think, oh, is that like a kind of a medieval classic Dungeons and Dragons RPG game? Well, no, I tried to really get the steampunk kind of diesel punk element into the game as well. So everything's overgrown with moss. Everything's crumbling. Things are cut away. Like when you go into small areas, you can see the construction and the rebar and the wall sticking out. So yeah, it was all kind of one, I guess, direction that we wanted to go in to kind of give a bit of a unique feel.
Can you take us right back to the beginning? How did the idea for the game come about, and how long have you been working on it?
Yeah, I can take that one. So we've initially sort of we were working on another game that at the time in 2019, and Ben went away, and during that sort of game we were more advanced in production on that, and that's where Dros sort of formulated around that 2019 year. Ben went away, and he was very interested in a lot of these. I guess it was that element of, we wanted to create a game that we really enjoyed watching, those 80s and sort of 90s fantasy movies, the darker Jim Henson ones that Ben mentioned before. And yeah, I guess the original idea came from trying to create a game that was in that genre. And it started in 2019, just as early concepts, and we've been working on it ever since then, juggling our other game at the beginning of the process, and it developed over that time. And we probably, we've been probably sort of full time on the game for roughly around 3 years now, and we're coming towards the sort of the final sort of stages of production. So it's been really exciting to just in probably the last sort of year or 6 months see all of the elements come together, all of those mechanics that we planned out coming together. And we're really excited to be launching our Kickstarter in a few days as well, to progress Dros to the final sort of stages, and I guess looking to release Dros maybe Q3 in 2023, so this year. So we're really excited.
What's it been like for you creating a game over the last couple of years? Everyone we talked to on the show say that it's been a creative challenge just to find the energy to keep making things, and you're a small team. Talk to me a little bit about what that process is like.
Absolutely. I think you only have so many resources at your disposal, and our core team is about 3 people. Tim, myself, and our lead programmer, Dion, who, has always made up our core team. We've been lucky enough to have a lot of other really talented collaborators, artists, designers, animators with us who've kind of come and gone over the years, and they've all, contributed in such an amazing way. Like, some of the art behind you, some of the lovely 3D little Dros huts behind you there were done by Angus, one of our 3D guys, and Dylan, our stage designer. It's been definitely a challenge, and I think all you can really do is try to stay true to a concept, and kind of you will definitely find yourself wavering from it, honestly. But if you can kind of keep bringing yourself back, that's helped me, at least. I'm sure the other guys have probably developed other coping mechanisms, but for me, I guess as director, it's if you can keep bringing things back to a concept, that really helps, even towards the end. So, if that concept is something along the lines of the kind of things I told you a minute or two ago, then that's bringing it back to that switching mechanic, things like that. That's helped me, at least.
Yeah, I guess on my end, Dros has been, we've been developing it for quite some time. So, it's trying to keep that momentum up through the whole project. You go through phases, I think, where it does become more challenging in terms of you might reach a point, and then, a good example was we were sort of developing a lot of mechanics, and that can be really fun. Like, that's great at the beginning, and you're trialing things. But from those mechanics, you've got to go into production. There's a point where I think you've got to be happy on, the mechanics that you've, been through those test periods with. And we then progress sort of into a more production thing, which was, level design and taking those mechanics in there. And I guess some of the challenges we've faced sort of along the way were early on, we did introduce some new mechanics into the game during the production phase, and sort of that introduced other challenges as well. And I guess game development never stops. It never ceases. You're always improving the game on the concept, of what Ben was talking about earlier. But there's got to be a point, I think, where you sort of decide on your core sort of mechanic, or people call it like a game loop. And then once you're decided on that, to then progress to the next sort of stages is really important, that is decided on relatively before moving into production. So I guess Dros has been going through these phases, and we're in the production phase at the moment. It's exciting. I mean, I love working on some of the music and putting music into Dros, because you have these stages that you're playing without any sort of sound, and then it adds another layer, putting some really awesome music in from our composer Aravane, and then the sound design goes in. And so it's been exciting for me to see it progress into adding all of these layers on top of the game, and we're still adding some layers and polish and things like that to the game, and it's been really cool. But just keeping that momentum through the whole production is really important as well.
I was just going to add on the tail end of Tim. I think that just the challenge of it's sometimes not what to put in, but what to leave out is definitely a challenge as well. Probably for every indie. Like, it's like you got to cut at some point. So that's a big one.
You got to kill your darlings in a way, don't you? Otherwise, you'll never get to the finish line.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you tell me, how did your team come together? How did you meet? How did you start working on games together?
We much earlier when we started the company, we did a lot of virtual reality work, actually. So a fair bit of our early stuff was definitely virtual reality based. and mixed with some kind of more corporate work as well, which is a lot of indie studios it's quite a common thing. You've kind of got to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that to do the things that you love, and we are no different. And we've gone through quite a few different projects and things over the years. So definitely, yeah. In our case, it was actually virtual reality based in the beginning. We have a game out there called Dance Collider, which is a virtual reality dance and rhythm game, which couldn't be further from the game we're making now, but good experience nonetheless.
The game, as people are listening to this, is on Kickstarter right now. How do you feel at this early stage? What are you hopeful for as part of this campaign? And, tell us about what the next couple of months will look like if you have a successful campaign.
We're super excited about our Kickstarter campaign. We are progressing through the production of Dros at the moment and putting those sort of finishing touches on some of the stages, and also we're still working through some the finer tuning of mechanics and things like that. And I guess we're super excited about the Kickstarter campaign because we've got some really cool rewards to offer people to be part of the Dros world, but also with a successful campaign, it will enable us to add those elements to Dros that we would love to get a super polished game out there, it'll allow us to keep working on Dros and keep the production keep it going for Dros for us as well over the next. We're looking to release in 2023. Based on a successful Kickstarter campaign, that would allow us to get to the finish line with Dros.
There is a demo available right now. As you're listening to this, you can find out more information by heading to drosgame.com. That's DROS game.com. Ben and Tim, thank you so much for joining me, giving us a little preview of Dros, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show in a couple of months' time when everything's out and ready and we can jump into all of the detail about how it was made.
Thanks for having us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gianni. Appreciate it.
SIFTER is produced by Fiona Bartholomaeus, Daniel Ang, Adam Christou. Mitch Lowe is our senior producer, and my name is Gianni De Giovanni, and I'm the executive producer. Thanks to Omny Studio for their support of SIFTER's 3 podcasts. You can find links to everything we've talked about on our website and in the show notes. But go to our website, which is sifter.com.au, to read more about the games and the guests that we've featured. And while you're online, why not give us a review on your favorite podcast player? It really does help. Tell us what you think. Give us a rating on there and tell your friends. That's another free thing you can do to support the show. That's all for this time. Until next time, have fun.